So the internet that we all use every single day, these social interactive web, it feels like it's on the brink of a really radical change.
It is. We're moving past these huge, centralized platforms that we've honestly relied on for decades.
And into something completely different.
That's really the core of this deep dive. We're looking at that big jump from what we call Web 2.0, the read and write web, to Web 3.0. And it's not just, a simple update, it's a total architectural reset.
Right. And it's probably worth just quickly mapping that evolution.
Yeah.
So Web 1.0, that was roughly, 1989 to about 2004.
Yeah, the read-only phase.
The static web. Basically a giant digital library.
Exactly. And then Web 2.0 came along, which is what we're all living in now, the read and write internet. It gave us things like dynamic content, user-generated stuff, and of course the social media giants.
Meta, Google, all of them.
But that incredible scale, it came with a hidden cost, which is this intense centralization. A few massive companies ended up controlling and monetizing all of our data.
And that's the very foundation that Web 3.0 is trying to crack, right?
It is. The promise of Web 3.0 is read, write, and own. So our mission today is to really unpack the tech that makes that ownership possible. We'll look at the economics, the tokens fueling it, and the big challenges holding it back.
Especially usability. That's a huge one.
A massive one. But let's start with the architecture because it's such a complete shift in philosophy. The whole thing really rests on three big principles, and the first one is decentralization.
Okay, so that means getting away from things like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud, where basically everything lives right now.
Precisely. Instead of having one central server farm, the data and the processing are spread out across a peer-to-peer network. It's shared by tons of individual computers or nodes.
So you don't have that single point of failure.
You get rid of it entirely. And when you remove that middleman, you naturally get to the other two principles,
which are trustlessness and permissionless access.
Trustlessness is maybe the most mind-bending part of this. In Web 2.0, you have to trust Facebook with your photos, or you trust your bank with your money.
You're trusting an institution, a company.
Right. In Web 3, you don't need that kind of trust. The trust is actually built into the code itself, into the cryptographic algorithms that verify every single transaction.
So we trust the math, not the corporation.
That's a perfect way to put it. And because of that, it's also permissionless. Anyone, anywhere on the planet with an internet connection can build or use a decentralized app, a D-app. There's no corporate gatekeeper saying yes or no.
And the backbone for all of this is, of course, the blockchain, that shared immutable ledger. But the real engine making it all work, especially in areas like finance, is the smart contract.
Oh, smart contracts are absolutely revolutionary because they automate trust. The best analogy is a kind of high-tech vending machine.
Okay.
So say you want a loan. All the terms, the interest rate, the repayment schedule, the collateral, it's all just coded directly onto the blockchain. And once the conditions are met,
so it just happens automatically.
It just executes. No lawyers, no bankers, no phone calls.
Which has to mean lower costs and faster settlement.
Drastically lower operational costs and settlement times are almost instant. And if you connect that idea to DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, you see governance getting automated, too.
Right, where the community itself gets to vote on things using tokens.
Yeah, the smart contract literally is the rule book for the entire organization. It's like a digital democracy, though, I should say. A very, very early stage one.
Of course. Now, you also mentioned another interesting layer to this, something that makes the web, smarter.
Right, the semantic component. This is about moving beyond just simple keyword searches. Web3 can use data processing to understand the actual meaning and context behind content. So the internet can start to understand relationships between different pieces of data, not just match words.
Which sounds like a huge deal for things like AI integration down the road.
It's critical for it.
Okay, so that's the architecture. Let's talk about the money, the tokens, the altcoins that are actually fueling this whole expansion. Because a lot of mainstream investors still have that institutional view. Just buy Bitcoin and ignore the rest.
And our sources argue that view is, and I'm quoting here, lazy and wrong. It just completely misses what tokens are becoming.
So what are they becoming?
Well, first, the market is just maturing. We aren't seeing that crazy indiscriminate altcoin season like we did in 2017 or 2021. And that's actually a good sign.
Why is that a good thing?
Because the supply has just exploded. I mean, we have something like 42 million tokens out there today. In 2021, it was 2.6 million. So pure speculation is giving way to actual utility.
So what is that new utility then? They're not just gambling chips anymore.
No, they're evolving into what the research is calling fundamental business primitives. A better way to think of it is like growth engines disguised as assets.
A growth engine. Unpack that for us. How is a token a growth engine?
It's all about bootstrapping a network really fast. Think about the early days of, say, Uber or DoorDash.
Right.
To get to scale, they had to burn through billions of dollars in venture capital, right? Subsidizing rides, giving discounts on food, just to build up both sides of their marketplace.
They were basically buying their users to build that moat.
Exactly. And it took years of massive losses. A Web3 startup can create that same network effect, but way faster and cheaper by using token incentives. Instead of spending billions on ads, they're just giving ownership and value directly to the early users.
So you get rewarded for participating and helping the network grow.
Right, which accelerates adoption at a fraction of the cost. And this completely changes the game for which digital asset might become the most valuable.
How so?
Well, the sources argue pretty strongly that Bitcoin probably won't win as the main monetary asset in the long run. The winner will likely be the native token of the blockchain that hosts the most popular app, so an ETH, a SOL, something else.
Because that's where all the activity is.
Yeah.
People will need that token to actually do things.
Exactly. The utility, the need to use it as a means of payment, is what will drive its monetary value, not just its ability to be a store of value.
If that model works, it sounds like a direct, almost an existential threat to the big Web2 companies.
Oh, it absolutely is. The entire profit margin of Google and Facebook is built on their data moat. They lock in your history, your social graph, and they sell access to it.
But if that data becomes portable,
The moat vanishes. If you can take your authenticated history with you to any new service, why would you be loyal to the old platform?
you wouldn't.
And this isn't just a theory. The sources expect we'll see the first year-over-year revenue declines at the big Web2 giants within the next 5 years, specifically because this data lock-in model starts to erode. This is a massive economic shift.
And that shift hinges on some really advanced cryptography, especially around identity. So let's get into that. How do we prove who we are without, giving away all of our private information?
This is maybe the biggest technical unlock of all. It's called Zero Knowledge Transport Layer Security, or ZKTLS.
Okay, that is a mouthful. Let's try an analogy. What does that actually let you do?
Okay, imagine you have your private Web2 data, like your pay stub or your bank statement, locked inside a safe.
Right.
ZKTLS is like a magical mechanism that can look inside the safe and verify a specific fact like, yes, this person earns over X dollars a year, and then prove that fact on the blockchain without ever opening the safe. The private data itself is never revealed.
Wow. Okay, so you could prove your income for a decentralized loan without ever actually showing your pay stub to anyone.
Precisely. And that technology is what powers the whole concept of self-sovereign identity, or SSI. The idea is simple. You, the user, own and control your identity and all your data. The power shifts away from institutions and back to you.
And SSI uses two main building blocks, right? DIDs and VCs.
That's right. DIDs are decentralized identifiers. Think of it as one single, permanent, global ID that you control and use for everything online. And VCs are verifiable credentials.
So like a digital driver's license?
Yeah, exactly. Or a digital diploma. It's a fraud-proof, cryptographically secured version of a real-world document.
And putting those together gives you that ultimate privacy.
Yes. You can use something called a zero-knowledge proof to prove a specific fact, like proving you're over 18 to access a game, without ever revealing your actual birth date. It's privacy by design.
And we're already seeing this start to take shape with things people are actually using, like NFTs and these newer things, SBTs.
Right. NFTs are pretty well known as profile pictures, but they're increasingly being used to represent real ownership of things. But soul-bound tokens, or SBTs, are different.
They're the ones you can't sell or trade.
Correct. They're permanently tied to your digital wallet, to your identity. They represent your reputation, your achievements, like a graduation certificate or proof you passed a KYC check. They build up a verifiable history that can't be bought.
And then you have Web3 domains like ENS, which just make the whole thing less scary by turning those crazy long wallet addresses into something like myname.eth.
It's all about making identity manageable.
Okay, but this brings us to the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
All this tech sounds amazing, but the gap between the promise of Web3 and the reality of using it today it's a chasm. Usability is just the biggest hurdle.
It's the fundamental trade-off. Web 2.0 did one thing brilliantly. It optimized for usability. Social logins, one-click payments, everything was frictionless.
So easy.
Web 3, on the other hand, because it forces you to take responsibility that self-custody is just inherently complex right now.
You have to manage your own private keys. If you lose them, your assets are gone forever. You're dealing with unpredictable gas fees, slow transactions.
The learning curve is incredibly steep, and the data shows just how real that friction is. In gaming, for instance, a space where Web 3 should be thriving.
Yeah.
Studies show 80% of casual gamers are just turned off completely by the crypto-related steps, setting up a wallet, buying the first token. It's too much.
And the economic model that was supposed to fix that, play to earn, that has its own huge problems, doesn't it?
It really does. The sources highlight a pretty stark reality. 90% of Web3 gaming economies collapse within 2 years.
90%. That's a staggering failure rate. Why?
Because most of them rely on a constant flow of new money from new players to pay out the old players. There's no real sustainable value being generated by the game itself. It's more of a speculative model.
And at the end of the day, people just want to play a fun game.
That's what the data says. 65% of players say game quality is more important than earning potential. If the game isn't fun, no token is going to save it.
And this shift in responsibility also creates totally new and, frankly, scary security risks for the average person.
It does. In Web 2, the risk is a data breach at a big company. In Web 3, the risk is all on you. You mismanage your keys, you click a bad link, and your assets can be drained in seconds, irreversibly.
Plus the risk from the code itself.
A huge risk. Over 40% of Web 3 breaches last year were due to poorly written smart contracts.
So if the vision is so powerful but the user experience is so weak, what's the actual path forward? How does this ever get to mass adoption?
The consensus seems to be pointing toward a hybrid model, something people are calling Web 2.5.
So the best of both worlds.
Basically, you build apps with the simple, user-friendly interfaces we expect from Web 2 social logins, easy payments, but you have the blockchain technology running invisibly in the background.
So the user gets the benefit of owning their assets, but they don't have to deal with private keys or gas fees unless they actively choose to.
Exactly. The goal is for the technology to become so seamless that you don't even know you're interacting with the blockchain. The utility is just there.
So we've covered a huge amount of ground here, a real architectural revolution from Web 1.0's static pages through Web 2.0's centralized social world, and now toward a Web 3.0 that promises actual user control and ownership.
Web 2.0 gave us scale, but Web 3.0 is promising control. It's about eroding that central economic moat.
Which brings up the investment perspective.
Right, and for anyone professionally looking at this space, you have to remember the asymmetric risk. You can get involved now while it's still messy and valuations are, well, arguably reasonable. Or you can wait.
Or you can wait until the disruption is obvious to everyone, and then you'll pay 10 times more for the same exposure. That choice really defines your horizon.
That's a powerful way to frame it.
But here's a final question for you to really think about after this deep dive. Web3's success depends entirely on its technology becoming stable and invisible, just like the internet itself did in the late 90s. That's what lets you move from just technical founders to actual business operators.
The mainstreaming moment.
Right. So given all these challenges we've discussed, the terrible UX, the risks of self-custody, the shaky economics of many early models, the real question is, can user-driven ownership survive the brutal market cycles long enough for the technology to finally catch up, become invisible, and achieve mass adoption? That race against time is what's going to define the next decade of the internet.